I think in the discussions, there were several things that came up, and I think we stopped just short of actually solving some of these issues. One was the whole issue of how will the grid react when you have high-speed charging. So in our case, we're working on two projects, one on the university side, one on the utility side, where we are seeing can we relieve the grid of that excess headroom. In other words, I thought if in your slide it says 68 kilowatts at 8 times charging, you're looking at about 600, 700 kilowatts per node. So if you have 10 buses charging, you require a substation, literally. So that is a cost. So the question is, can I take the headroom away? Because now what happens is, for every extra kilowatt the bus adds, I have to add that on the infrastructure side. So there is a cost to society, and therefore the reduction of the bus battery capacity in the bus and the reduction of the headroom in terms of charging is a less cost also on the infrastructure side, which very rarely gets discussed. You invariably talk of the bus, and the infrastructure guy then pays for it, goes to the rate base, and that adds to the cost. But nevertheless, I was very intrigued, and I think we should try with lithium titanate having been improved. I was a little impressed by your numbers. Lithium titanate was not considered that safe, but you made it very safe, which is good. In the world over, in the United States also, lithium titanate is not sort of preferred, but that's okay. You have said what you've said, which is good. So the question, therefore, is we should try. We have another second project is optimization. So we have created a node. In fact, it will be very interesting. I was telling the chair that we should try that, because in our project at ISGF, and I'm a member of that team, when we look at Calcutta, we look at Bangalore, we can optimize nodes where we don't have to charge 3 buses at the same time. We line them up one behind the other on the same infrastructure. And if you do that across as a substation distribution system, it is possible that with 15 chargers around in the Kolkata area especially, you could take off in different routes. All the bus has to be done is staggered for about maybe 6 minutes each, which is not a big difficulty. So it nevertheless needs to be tried out, see can we reduce the battery size and make that happen for the public fleet side. On the swapping side, I think I hear Pawan and he's correct. We're already working, in fact, in Calcutta with a three-wheeler company. And this NRI actually has brought it in. He is doing the three-wheeler. The question is, can you swap lithium for the lead-acid batteries? And that's highly doable. It's a 48-volt, 100 ampere hour. What you do is a 48-volt, 25 ampere hour modules. And you put 4 if you want, you put 3 if you want. And there's enough of space in that thing. And I agree with Pawan, in a car you cannot. The car's battery are all fixed in a particular way to maximize not only the battery, but also the center of gravity for crash test. So you just can't keep easily swapping. You have to swap it with that particular frame shape. If you look at the Nissan Leaf, it's almost like a T. It's not even a straight square. So there will be issues somewhere like the Model T. You will have to agree to build cars to a particular size of batteries. And then the battery guy gets enough of volume orders. So it's a little bit. The bus size battery, actually, there are 4 batteries in India. It's very different from the foreign designs. So it is potentially swappable if it is light enough. And that is a question. They actually put 4 batteries. If you look at the BYD, the Scania bus of Telangana, there are 4 batteries actually. And so it is potentially possible that if you lower the battery size, it can be done. We'll have to still take Dr. Junjunwala's challenge. It's not an easy challenge when he says, swap batteries. So that is one. The third issue is this V2G that Akshay projected. We have been, when I was in the utility career till 3 years ago, we used to have constant discussions with the big 3 companies. So let me put it in perspective, and then I'll tell you why I don't believe V2G is a great thing at the moment. A tank of gas is $80. A tank of electricity in a car is $8. So assume you want to keep at least half for safety reasons. You don't want to run out of juice in a car. You're now trying to arbitrage $4 at a particular time. And it is not big enough. See, it's just, at least within the context of most people, it is just not big enough to say I'm going to risk a $40,000 battery or a $30,000 battery for a $2 transaction. The only time I'll do it is when my house is running out of juice. I will do that. I will easily take the car battery and put it in. But not for these grid kind of supports no matter how charitable somebody may appeal to me, I'm not going to do it for $2 because the battery warranty, very clearly they'll tell you, you may have misused the battery by cycling and so on and so forth. For that, you might as well use hybrid batteries with ultracapacitors. You can do other configurations, and they're probably much better off. So that was one observation with respect to this V to G things. The key question, and in Jhunjhunwala's presentation he talked about, was the notion you can take 1 million cars and sort of help the renewable side of the grid. I have some doubts on that. You probably have to think of sort of public infrastructure to support it. So there what we have done is we have all the 6 energy storage in Canada developed. So we have what's called the Power Shift Atlantic program, where we are seeing can load follow generation. So we actually have, at Siemens, we have got a big collaboration for 50, 60 megawatts, where instead of generation following load, we follow generation on the intermittent side. So we have wind turbines, and as the generation picks up relative to demand, we either turn on heaters, hot water heaters, or we turn down thermostats by 1 degree, half degree on the thermal side. So thermal storage actually may not be a bad idea, as opposed to jumping into big chemistry batteries, which is expensive at the moment. So that is one. Second is cryogenics, and we have a cryogenic battery developed in the UK, and we have flywheels. So they do about 40, 50 minutes of, even though they slow down in speed, the electronic picks up. On the electrical side, you don't see it, even though on the mechanical side, the flywheels begin to slow down. So to us, that's a lower cost than chemical batteries. So it's not necessarily that every time you talk of energy storage, it has to be chemistry. It could be one of the other forms of mechanical or other forms of storage. Coming to solar shells, I think which Tata's had, and I think this gentleman asked the question. It's very nice, and I've seen this at UC Davis. I've seen that at Mohammed Shahidipur's university, also in University of Illinois, Chicago. The key question is, it's very nice if you actually park the car underneath. In Saudi Arabia, I've seen this. You park it underneath, and if the car is parked there, you get direct juice from the sunlight. But in many places, that doesn't happen that way. So if you look at home charging, in Japan, they actually make you park the car a little away as a public charging. You opened it up at the opening. In United States, it's your driveway. It's in Canada, it's our driveway, unless you live in a multi-storied apartment building. So it's very, very unique to the choice that a person makes, and also what facilities are available. Now look at the flip side in California. We all talk of night charging where the car comes, but in our studies in Kolkata and Bangalore, if you live in a residential place, I'll tell you the peak is at 10:30 at night. Air conditioners are all on in the summer, or even later, right? So you can't suddenly say, let me go to Salt Lake where there is an industrial place and then park my car, because the industrial DTs can take it. We've seen that also. There's a lot of headroom in those industrial DTs under Calcutta Electric. So this could be an issue one way. Then next, if you come to California on the other side, the duck curve gives you the lowest cost energy actually in the morning, in the noon time. Now, if everybody did not drive to a parking spot which had a charging which could take advantage of that low cost, it's again an infrastructure balance. So if the duck curve does not exist on a particular week or a particular day or a particular month, you have to sort of manage this. So the one way to solve this is actually to have distributed energy storage as a part also of your network. If you want to optimize on the pricing signals that you get, you can't just take it simply from the grid. So these are all being worked out at the moment. There are a lot of people working on it, but it's not an easy one. The question is battery to battery charging, and I think he had it in your chart, is where you get the fastest charge in a way. One that was not talked about, and we have worked on it, is pulse charging. Pulse charging also relieves the grid. In fact, for an 80 kilowatt pulse charger, I only need 50 kilowatts or 45 kilowatts from the grid. Why? Because I manage the capacitors to go and give me the pulse. So there are ways to alleviate the grid, in fact, of some of these direct coupling effects. So pulse charging is one of them. Wireless charging is also another one, but I think you spoke, or somebody spoke of wireless charging. I think you spoke about wireless charging. It's there. Commercially, we have one in Canada, which is in Quebec right now, we use it. But it's still to catch up, okay? So there's the frequency issues of all that is still being worked out. But nevertheless, I think it was a very interesting sort of subject which each one brought about with their challenges and the opportunities. But for India, I still believe, and I think he brought about the 48 volts, which is unique. LVDC, I sit on the IEC committee of low voltage DC. It is 48 volts. India has signed off on it, so that doesn't change. IEC standard for low voltage, or ELVDC as we call it, is 48 volts. The next industrial standard is the US standard of 380 volts. You mentioned 400, it's 380 volts. So that also has been standard because people have had it for a long period of time. But on the EU side, because of solar and other forms of, it can go as high as 800 volts for bus charging, which is where ABB and others are going. And there is some who will say, no, we should go up to 1,000 because we already have solar inverters at 1,000 volts. In fact, sitting on the top of my house is a 1,000 volt thing. So the 1,500 volts has been set as the DC limit for low voltage DC. So AC is 1 kV, 1,000 volts, but DC has actually been set at 1,500 volts. So that gives you a play. Now Calcutta is sitting at 550 volts on the tram ring circuit. So we may have to then use that whatever voltage we have. But it can go up to 800 volts very easily if somebody wants, or even up to 1,000. The key question is, do you want it? And that is something that we'll have to see on the cost side. So that was one. Your question on battery swapping and why, we'd have it in the fleet. FedEx fleet in Canada, and now in Toronto, we have about 300 sort of these minibus type fleets where it is delinked. In fact, the battery is delinked from the vehicle itself, even though it's the OEM battery. The key aspect of it is, it's what drives that concept that you talked about is actually a business case. I'm not attached to my car. I'm not attached to Tesla. I don't have my wife screaming at me that I'm doing V2G. All that is gone. So now it's pure business. Am I getting a return of investment, or am I not getting a return of investment? So fleet operators, as our chair said, is perhaps the right way to go for India, not only to scale, but also to decouple emotion from a business. And we have enough of opportunities on the two-wheeler side, three-wheeler side, and then on the bus side. Leave the cars alone for now. It's not the right thing to do. But lithium cabs in Bangalore is a very good example of how they took a captive market and they're actually doing reasonably well. So lithium cabs model could be taken on taxis. But don't take it on public taxis where you have to call a taxi to go to some different places. You take a private sector. What they do is, for Infosys and others, they run morning circuit and evening circuits. So school buses could be an ideal one as well. So different observation. But nevertheless, I think fast charging is here to stay. We have to figure out what that means for this country. We have some level of battery swapping to stay. We'll have to figure out what that battery is on the 48 volt system. We have some good examples that we shared on the Bharat, Make in Bharat and Bharat things, which the standards don't talk about because of 48. And our chair mentioned about how, he's got a problem, he's got a scale. There's no way that you can just say, let me do a pilot here and let me do a pilot there. There should be 1,000 charging stations with maybe about 2,000 buses. And we found that out in the case of Bangalore, Calcutta and others. Their attrition rate is 70 buses a year through natural process. So if I take Calcutta plus Bangalore itself, 150 buses is there to take for the OEMs today if they bring the cost down. And the problem is, when you look at all these BYD buses and Volvo buses, 324 kilowatt hours, 80 kilowatt plant, 200 kilowatt range, 200 kilometer range, 120 kilometers an hour speed. Who wants all that in India? I don't know. But yet India seems to be tolerating that import design as opposed to contesting why it should or it should not. And I find that a very big weakness within the OEMs also of this country, not to be able to bring it down to, let's say, to 1.5 crores. Very clearly the bus manufacturers have said, bring it down to 1.5 crores, I'll give you 70 buses each. So it is possible to drive about 400 buses a year in market size or 1,000 if you just come to some of those aspects as well. But for that, the architecture of the battery, the charging infrastructure, all that has to be optimized. And I think there is enough of brain power here to do that. It's a question of the bus manufacturers coming to some understanding as opposed to just importing some bus that was available in China. So I would that.
1.5 crores with what size battery?
What size battery?
Yeah, the 1.5.
I think It's a one-tonner.
Yeah.
You see, the key issue, I just want to, I mean, half the audience is actually sitting on stage, but still this is an important topic to talk. And I think bus is an important topic, partly for what it is, and partly because ISGF has shown interest. They're doing a study in Bangalore and in Calcutta. The issue about bus is a typical bus battery would be 3 tons in size. Now, my mobile phone has a battery of this size. You know, I can't even imagine what size a 3-ton battery would be. This is unviable from the word go. You can't even think. Yeah. So from the word go, this is not going to work. You know, there is no way a 3-ton battery can go into a bus, and our bus agencies buy it. So at the most, 1.5 crores we said, because that is double the cost of what they can afford right now, with all the government support and all of that. And this is worth looking at it. I think there is enough scope for study before we actually launch into it.
Why even 100? So,
It should be on.
okay. Hello? So the question is, why even 100 kilowatt hours? Why not 50 kilowatt hours, especially if you're 90? My understanding is, as you, I think yourself said, 90% of the bus routes are 30 kilometers or less. So if it is 30 kilometers or less, why not, even if it's end-to-end, fast charging, why not, yes, you need to keep 25, 30% excess, so why not 50 kilowatt hour batteries?
Absolutely. That should be adequate, and that's what we want to figure out. We are willing to support some pilots. No, he talked about 100-kilometer range minimum.
No, we should cut him back and say, give us a smaller battery with fast charge.
Oh, he certainly offered something. So this is a topic, I think, this platform, I hope it will get recorded. People should be able to take it up. It's a worthwhile topic to do a scenario paper. From our platform, we can support trials. And in Delhi, Tata Power has agreed that even in Bombay, I find competing from Tata Power, the scenario is set. We need to try it out. We have the DTC, the DIMS, a whole lot of people interested in this topic. Yeah.
And I do have another question, which we may not have addressed here, is nobody seems to be talking about energy density. Is there any work going on that can increase the energy density so that you can, for any battery? So is there do you see anything that's coming up that can improve the energy density in the next 5-6 years?
First, the question is there a need or not? That is one question. Number two is the way batteries are constructed. Lithium-ion battery is meant to dilute the capacity of lithium to make it safer. The material is filler material, is the clay or carbon into which lithium is dispersed. So there is a limitation in the particular design of battery unless you go to a different kind of battery.
So your answer is right. So there are polymer lithium batteries. Polymer lithium batteries, in fact, of Electrovaya, Shankar Das Gupta's company, an Indian, has the highest density within the polymer lithium family. But the problem, I think, is a lot of the polymer lithium family have got the alcoholic electrolyte. So your temperature management in that narrow band has got to be kept perfect. For a country like India, where the underhood temperature could go at 60, 55 degrees, your headroom is only about 20 degrees on temperature rise. So the lithium ion, ferrous phosphates, that family does not have alcoholic electrolytes. So you can actually go up. Your presentation was interesting. I still don't know what your electrolyte is. So the key question is the person who has broken some of these variables, you may have to sacrifice density because of some other issues. He showed the Kokum battery, which came out in the newspaper yesterday. Sajid showed that. Right. That's lithium polymer, it's lithium manganese cobalt, but it is water cooled. Right? So then you have to start asking these questions. Do I put demineralized?
This is Vineet Bansal from EV Motors.
Yeah, right.
And the question I have is, I think during one of your discussion, you had mentioned that the 50-kilometer range, and so I think we are one of the companies who are working on that project. So our vehicle is at 50-kilometer range.
Good. Akshay, get his name and card. We need this man on our team.
Right,
Okay.
and it's going to charge in 6 minutes, as Rakesh there mentioned, and it's a pantograph. So we are already working on that, and we would be very interested in talking to you to
Sure.
see
No,
how
no.
we can do some pilots.
It's, the subject itself is an implementable plan. is
It's an
what we took
implementable
on,
plan.
yes.
That's what we have.
So if you have it there, you become a part of our report.
Sure.
Just one comment why this platform is recommended. Because our idea is to reduce the cost of the bus. And the cost doesn't go anywhere. It goes to the infrastructure. You had mentioned that, you know. So this is
And
the
we will
platform
bring
to
it,
address
and we will bring this to the cost of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Not
there-
at the time of launch, but in 3 years.
So there would be substations become bigger. You know.
Okay, you can't, 3 years is too late.
If the volume is there, yes, we can do it.
Yes, I told, yeah.
So this session from last year's session is very conclusive. A lot of good recommendations has come, and I think we should go and implement all those things now and plan for next year for this session. And see, we might be instead of planning for 3 to 5 years, we should plan for next year and come
why
session.
don't we take a challenge and say next year we don't come if we don't deliver?
I agree. I completely agree with
I agree.
that.
Well, 3 years is too far out.
Okay.